Hear me good?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
All right. Thank you very much for doing this, sir. I will not keep you a minute over 30 minutes. You are perhaps the only guest that I do not need to introduce. You're Michael J. Durant, pilot of UH-60 Blackhawk for the 160th SOAR. And you have the patience of a god and a saint to put up with my emails. So thank you for that, sir. So because you are so well known and everyone knows your story, I don't want to ask the normal questions that have been gone over a million times. So, like I said in our email last week, the one thing that really stuck out to me was, aside from just obviously the surrealness of everything that happened, the historical value of it, the military implications of it, it was it was your mindset while in captivity. And it wasn't what I thought it would be. It wasn't because reading Black Hawk Down and then reading Company of Heroes, the, they're two separate events. And from your point of view, Black Hawk, I can't relate to Black Hawk Down because it sounds like it reads like it was written by Rambo, right? I mean, it's a great book, but it's, very much so sounds like it was made for a movie, which it was. Your book, I'm 29. I believe you were 32 at the time. But your book is something that I read and I was like, this is what I imagine it would be. I'm like, okay, this sounds like a 32-year-old guy. This sounds like me going, oh my God, I'm scared shitless. And I could, no military experience, obviously, but it's something I could relate to more. But what was most interesting to me, having said all that, was your mindset during it. And I remember the first time I saw that movie at my friend's all night sleepover in fifth grade. But I remember like it stuck out to me then, and I was like, what would I like? I got scared when I'm in detention. I remember the first time I got detention. I remember, getting yelled at by police in high school and how scared I was. Saying all of this to say, my mindset I thought would have been stay positive. Don't don't become almost a nihilist. Don't. It's all over. It's finished. Nothing good can happen from this. Yours was definitely that, and utilizing your steer training from the bearded one, you will show respect. But it was also saying all of this to say this. It was don't don't let hope get you carried away. And that hit me hard because that was something that I felt like anyone can relate to. And I've been thinking about it lately, and it didn't hit me till last night. What it reminded me of, it's almost like the feeling of falling in love after you've already been in a relationship and gotten your heart stepped on. It was that nervous, like I want it to be true, but don't don't get your hopes up because it can just crush you. So people listening to this are here to listen to you, not me. And I realize I've been word vomiting for 3 minutes. So could you go into that more? And is that something that you ever utilized before that? Just, I mean, again, in SEER training and in other operations, or was that something that sort of developed on the fly? And has it been something you've utilized since then in business, with family, with anything? Don't let the hope get to you. Don't because it will. And that's not to say be pessimistic, but it's don't let the butterflies take you away because really you're just setting yourself up for failure if it doesn't work. Sorry for that tirade.
Yeah, well, I mean, they taught us that in survival school, and I wouldn't say it's the only time I've ever tried to apply it, and it's really good advice for anybody. If you got your heart set so strongly on something happening and then it doesn't happen, it could be a lot more devastating than if you just said, well, that's a best case scenario. Let's hope that works out, but don't like build your plan around it. If you build your plan around something happening and then it doesn't, then the whole plan's gone. But if you build it as a possibility and your overarching strategy involves this as a best case scenario and this is a worst case scenario and the most likely result being somewhere in between, then you're able to handle the situation a little bit better. So, and I think the first time I ever consciously thought about it probably was Somalia, but I think it had a lasting effect on me. I think, you know, whether it's a business decision or whatever, you know, I have my own company now, and we'd like to think that every proposal we submit is going to be accepted and we're going to win, but the reality is they're not going to be. So you have to sort of take an appetite suppressant, whatever terminology or the phrase you want to use, and shoot for that realistic target. And then, you know, I'm not saying don't be hopeful, but don't plan on the best case result, because best case result almost never happens in life. You know, very seldom.
Yeah. That now there are parallels between, you know, you talked about, you know, when the doctor would give you aspirin and what was your line? It was, these have about as much as an effect on my pain as M&Ms do for a heart attack. It is very, and then when you were being released and the doctor came in and said, Mr. Duran, I'm going to give you morphine. And in the book, morphine?
Yeah.
Really? Like, you know, are you shitting me?
Yeah.
And so how you described it, you said, you know, it was everything finally released, you know, all the bones, the taut muscles and tendons released. But then there was also a parallel release when you said, when you were on the gurney and you had already been back in U.S., I guess you were at the UN compound, but you're surrounded by you were freed. And you said at some point you almost sat up and you started to have a panic attack because you were surrounded by these physicians, you were surrounded by your comrades, you were, you know, on a hefty dose of morphine, and it started to, again, almost that hope. Oh my God, is it like this? Am I going to wake up? And you said you grabbed the sides of the gurney and it was cold steel and cold American steel. This is real. And you said you relaxed. Obviously there was, as you talked about, there's obviously lasting traumatic effects, but I would imagine, or was there an acute, did that happen more than once over the coming days? Like, this can't be real. I'm finally out. Or was that more of a, just kind of all a shock and blur?
Yeah, you know, I can't remember any other distinct moments where that happened, but, you know, I mean, it still happens in life. You know, you wonder, is this just some elaborate dream that I'm in the middle of? Or
Yeah.
You know, for me now, it's, you know, almost 30 years. And even thinking about this, it is surreal because my life is so different now. And it's, you know, you can't even compare the two. And it becomes sometimes I question even my own memories because it just seems so extreme that it's hard for even me to relate. So I can't imagine. And I've always said that about other POWs, you know, like, you know, I was in captivity for 11 days, and you've got guys that were in captivity in Vietnam for 7 years, 10 years. And, you know, for the same reasons, I can't relate to that. I couldn't relate to it then. I can't relate to it now. So it's very difficult to actually understand the psychology and the mentality of that experience, even for me, having experienced it myself, because so much time has gone by. But you know, there's always that, you know, is my mind playing tricks on me? Is this real, or am I imagining this? You know, because there are things that your mind can do, a healthy mind can do, to help you deal with stressful situations or challenging situations. And I think it's natural in human nature to question even reality sometimes. You know, as long as you don't do it too often or too much.
You don't want to go off the deep end, wander into the woods and never come back.
Right.
Kind of on, I guess, completely unrelated to your experience, but on that note, have you ever read any Alan Watts?
I have not.
He passed away in 1972. He's just a philosopher. But his whole thing was questioning reality, and is it just a dream? And you know, it kind of depends on who you bring that up with, because some people look at you like, you know, your head's not screwed on too tight. But it's one thing he talked about. He said, if you were God, what would you do if you got bored? It's like, you would probably dream any dream you could dream. He's like, in the first night, say 8 hours is 80 years. Because what would you do? you'd have unlimited pleasure. And you'd probably do that for a couple months, 80 years a night. And he said, as time went on, you would start to do more and more challenges, rescuing princesses from dragons, making huge explosions, or even maybe just being a beautiful artist. And he said, like children daring each other to go farther and farther out, on the playground or go out farther on the branch.
Mm-hmm.
He said, eventually you would have a dream where you forgot that you were dreaming, that it wasn't that there was a suspension of your powers, so that you didn't even know you were dreaming. And he goes, and eventually you would be where you are right now. And that's what would be the dream. Because no matter what the story was, when you woke up, it would be so fantastic. If you've never read Alan Watts, you should read some Alan Watts. I think you would enjoy it. He's a trip and a half. But so it's something I also didn't expect while reading your book, is that there are parts of it that are really, really funny. Like your description of Farimbi, dude, I did not expect to be laughing.
Well, I didn't expect to be laughing in captivity, which I did do. Yeah, that's really a big part of why I wrote the book. I wrote the book for two reasons, well, maybe three reasons. As you alluded to in the intro, it is a different story. Black Hawk Down ends, and then my story begins, and that's really, and it was untold. So that was one reason. Another reason was, I serve with amazing people that I didn't feel their stories might ever be told, and I thought it needed to be, and that's why the title is what the title is, because some of those guys stayed in that same unit for 20 years after I left, and the things that they've been involved in it's off the chart. It's incomprehensible for the average American, I think. And this was just a small attempt to try to bring some of that to light, and then the third reason was to for healing purposes, I guess you would say. There was a lot of psychological impact of this on me, and I think that's true for a lot of people who were there. Some openly obvious, some not, but it's hard to experience something like that and not be affected by it emotionally or psychologically. And writing the book was sort of like getting it all out there, right? It was, look, guys, I'm a human. I'm not perfect. This is what I did. This is why I did it. This is how it turned out. And it was all for the best of intentions. But in the end, it was a crap situation with a crap outcome, even though everybody involved that I personally interfaced with did an amazing job at everything they did. So, it was a huge thing to get off my chest, and I'm really glad I did it. It's a little bit controversial. When I first found out about the unit, it was still what we call a black unit, meaning nobody even knew it existed. You weren't supposed to talk about it. We went on deployments. You couldn't take pictures. You couldn't tell anybody where you went. I mean, it was that kind of an organization. And then as it got bigger, it got a little bit more exposed, and it became more open. But the one part that never got exposed, and still is not today, is really the operational side. What's really going on operationally in the organization? So when you write about an operation, it's pretty sensitive, and it can burn bridges. It can put you on the outside. But I felt okay doing it for a couple of reasons. One is I waited 10 years, so. The operational significance of something 10 years later is almost nothing. And then Black Hawk Down had already been done. The movie had already come out. And I thought, look, there's nothing else I'm going to talk about here that's not already been, disclosed publicly. And it was accepted, and I've never had any pushback whatsoever about doing it. But, initially when you first start thinking about it, you wonder, how is it going to be received? Are people going to be upset with me for doing this? And in the end, I don't think anybody was, or no one's ever said anything about it. And it's actually probably been a good recruiting tool for the unit, because a lot of people have read the book, and they're envisioning themselves doing the same thing. And I got to tell you, it's amazing stuff. It really is. I mean, it's the stuff when you're a young person like I was, you dream about. You just, could I be that person? And then all of a sudden you're doing it. And it absolutely did not disappoint for me. Is it the same today? I can't say. I know it's bigger. I know there's some good, and there's probably some, unfortunately, that's not as good as it was when I was there. But it's still an amazing place, and I'm just honored to have served there and serve with the people I serve with.
I mean, I kind of felt stupid while listening to your book, because I realized, because you called them the people the customers, correct?
Right.
But, yeah. And I thought about it, and I was like, of course, I know I felt so stupid. I was like, of course, like if you're going to have these elite of the elite Delta Force DevGru, I was like, of course, there's going to be an insertion team that is the elite of the elite. And as someone that likes to read about all this stuff, I kind of felt stupid not knowing about it. But yeah, it's when talking about Farimbi, it was just like, I don't know. It was there was definitely almost like a James Bond-esque feel. It was, giving Farimbi hot sauce.
Yeah.
And he'd chug it, or giving, Farimbi winks at you, and you give him your cut of cot.
Yeah.
And it's just, as you're talking about, it's just, it almost, it was like a satirical version of almost like, I've never watched it, but what I imagine like House of Cards is like, it's all about favors and who and hands you shake. But it's here, I'm just imagining you bruised up, bloody, and you're scheming. You're like, all right, I gave Frimby the hot sauce, gave him his cot. You're like, I gave him a smile, but not too much. I need to play this angle well. And it's, yeah. And then I lost it when you said, you got to the compound and you're like, Farimbi, wearing a Viva ID shirt, pulls out UN credentials, and you're like, I'm just a babe in the woods. You're like, I have no idea what's going on. Man, I hope it was meant to be funny, because I laughed my ass off at that part.
It's actually sad when you think about it, that the guy that, he's not the number one guy, but he's top 5 that we're after, has the audacity to walk into the compound, or at least get right up to it, with a Viva General Hadid shirt on, and he's got credentials. I mean, the point of bringing that up was not only just that it is bizarre and humorous, is how difficult these complex scenarios that we're in. Afghanistan's the same, Iraq is the same. You just don't know who's who. You don't, it's just war is not the way war used to be, and it's harder now. I mean, is it World War I scale? No, but it's in terms of the complexity of it and the challenges and figuring out how the hell do you prosecute this thing. It's not quite as straightforward as just lobbing bombs over the forward line of troops. It's a very, very complex situation, and Somalia really started the sort of transition of this new phase. You could argue Panama was somewhat the same way, but I think the real shift came with Somalia and the subsequent action since.
Because it's, World War II was really just who can produce more bombs, who can, intelligence obviously, but there are their cities, here are the maps, let's send over 10,000 B-17s. Curtis LeMay used to say, one will always get through. And it was just, but it's not that way anymore. It's not, it's not armies under flags with uniforms. It's, I mean, like in Black Hawk Down, they talked about, it's, guys surrounding themselves with women and children. What do you do? And who do you capture to win hearts and minds? Who do you shoot? Who is the enemy today that's an ally tomorrow? Or, I mean, look at Osama bin Laden and the Mujahideen. Reagan revered them as freedom fighters. He was on the front page of the New York Times. And then it's, we're all cheering in the streets when we go and get him in 2011. It's insanely difficult. And then, it's scattered amongst it is Farimbi chugging hot sauce and drinking goat's milk. And how many kids do you have? 14? You have 14 kids?
Yeah.
So that just blew my mind. And there's another line towards the end of it when you were getting on the plane and everyone was doing a toast with the whiskey, and it was a line that I'd never really thought of. again, having never served in the military, and I'm an educated, well, at least I would like to think, an educated male and in a middle class family in the United States of America in 2020. How much luckier can you get? But you said, the only thing I had left from all of this was this beret. And you said, and something that I had always taken for granted, my freedom. And I just thought about that, and I was like, yeah, like what would make you appreciate just anything more than not being free? I mean, it sounds like a simple point, but it's like, oh wow, it's not like I need a Lamborghini to be happy. I need a smoking hot wife. I need, $1 billion. It was, for me, I need some cotton hot sauce. It's, oh wow, like I'm free. I thought that was a very powerful line. I got you. Don't worry, I got a timer going. I got 9 more minutes. So I wanted to ask you about, I don't know if you ever watched any of or listened to any of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. He had on a Navy commander, a pilot named Commander David Fravor, who is most well known for he and his, I guess, squadron. They were dispatched over Los Angeles on 9/11. In 2004, off the USS Nimitz, he captured with the camera on his fighter jet what is the Pentagon has now, in I think the last 2 weeks, released, said it was a UFO. Not going down into UFOs. The point is, so Joe Rogan was talking to him. He said, "What's the first thing you saw?" Because he described it as, he said, an SR-71 Blackbird from the height of a fighter jet takes about 60 seconds to go past you at full speed over the horizon. He said this one over the horizon in, I think, 0.8 seconds. Just did the math. It was like Mach 250. And you mean that the X-15 went Mach 7. But anyway, so Joe Rogan asked him, he's like, what did you think when you saw that? What was the first thing you thought, Oh my God, alien contact, whatever. And he said, no, man. I looked at it and I was like, boy, I would like to fly that thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
who's working that program?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was like, God, he was like, if that's the Chinese, they're so lucky. He's like,
yeah.
If that's some Area 51 program, he's like, I got to get in on that.
Yeah.
So what I thought about just, looking into Black Hawks and a little bit out of my price range, but MH-60s or UH-60s, and then the supposed the Stealth Hawk, the one of 2 helicopters that inserted SEAL Team 6 during Operation Neptune Spear to go kill Bin Laden, and one of them, obviously, the tail hit the wall and went down. But I was looking at that and I thought about you, and I thought, because I saw someone comment, it's like, this is Black Hawk Down all over again. I thought, like, well, no, because it wasn't shot down. But then it got me thinking of you, and it made me think of Commander Fravor, and I was like, I wonder if Mike Durant saw this, and I wonder if the first thing he thought is like, man, what would it be like to fly one of those? Is that something that's ever crossed your mind?
So, yeah, actually, when I first saw it, I did not know about the project, and people asked me about it. I said, it's not a Black Hawk, because the parts were just not Black Hawk looking.
Sure.
Now I know the real story. Honestly, I don't know I know what's in the public domain. I don't know what's okay to talk about and what's okay not to talk about.
Okay.
But, to me, though, I honestly think the decision to use those aircraft was not a good decision, because they really weren't proven, and that's what led to the crash. And I'm armchair quarterbacking.
Yeah.
I think whoever made the call to use those was accepting a lot of risk for simply a little bit of noise reduction, because that's primarily what you were looking at there is noise reduction. And when there's a whole other armada of aircraft involved in the mission, I mean, how significant is putting these 2, I'll call them prototype unproven platforms, right at the heart of the mission? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't agree, but I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I don't know what the catalyst was to say, let's use them. But, obviously it didn't go so great, and we recovered from it, fortunately, because of good planning and good execution all around.
Yeah. Yeah, it almost seems like Murphy's Law. It's like, let me get this straight. We're going into Pakistan to take down the #1 most wanted man in the world, who we've spent $5 trillion over a decade to try to get. It's like, it's like, stay with what's proven.
Right, right.
No, let's throw in the new sexy helicopter. Yeah. Some general wanted to get that thing some notoriety. And the other question I had is more so just your thoughts on it, because it kind of just looks alien, about the SB-1 Defiant, the Sikorsky Boeing Defiant. What do you think of that thing? It's got the rotor on the propeller on the back and push. That thing looks insane.
Yeah, we've we tried that before. There was actually a Vietnam era helicopter that had that pusher prop on the tail. There's probably been others, but I'm a little bit skeptical again. I know we need more speed. I know we need some capabilities that the current generation of helicopters do not provide. But I am always sort of a very practical thinker, and understanding that if the operational cost of these platforms is what historically every other new platform's operational cost turns into, I remember when I went to flight school and I got the Black Hawk transition,
Yeah.
and I love Black Hawks. If anybody from Lockheed or Sikorsky's watching, don't hate this, but we were told that you could do all the maintenance on the aircraft with a standard mechanics toolbox, right? Well, if you look at what it takes to maintain a Black Hawk today, it's not a standard mechanics toolbox.
Yeah.
And the operational cost is orders of magnitude more than what anyone ever thought it would be. So now we're building this new generation of aircraft, and I know the Army's focused on this, and I know what I'm saying is blatantly obvious to everyone on the program, but I'm just saying I'm skeptical that we're going to be able to build and field something that we can afford to fly. And if we can't afford to fly it, then we're not going to be able to fly it and use it very well, because you just have to have operational time. It goes back to our previous discussion. We didn't have that much time on those birds, and we didn't really vet them and wring them out so we understood, all the little nuances of how they perform in various situations. I'm speculating, but I'm probably right.
Yeah.
And now we're going to do it again, but we're going to be buying aircraft that potentially cost so much that we can't really fly them all that much. And that people don't realize the Army has the largest air force in the world. We have more aircraft than the Air Force, and we have more aircraft than all the other services combined.
I didn't know that.
We actually have more boats than all the other services combined. The Army's gigantic. So when you think about having to field the number of platforms that we have to field, and the cost of operating those platforms, and then keeping everybody proficient to actually utilize those capabilities, that's where I'm a little bit skeptical. And I know we can't fly Black Hawks forever. I know we can't, Chinooks either. But I just hope we're going in with the realization that it's going to cost a lot more than we think it's going to cost. And when we can't afford to fly the aircraft, we don't have a capability. And it's all about capability. And that's why we do this stuff. So we have a capability. We already have aircraft in the inventory that are so expensive that we hardly fly them at all. And proficiency suffers. And then when you need them, you don't have what you think you had.
Yeah.
But on the technical side, it's kind of cool. It's,
it's cool.
I thought I was going to get to fly it. Actually, a friend of mine at Sikorsky who was arranging a quick test flight, and then they crashed it. Crash is a harsh word. It had a hard landing, I guess I would say. And of course, at that point, the insurance people are all, putting the kibosh to letting anybody in the cockpit. So my opportunity to fly it went away. But anyone that flies anything, when you see something new and different and interesting, first thought is, I'd like to give that thing a run around the block.
I like to whip around in that.
Just say you've been there, done that.
Yeah. You said they can't fly Black Hawks forever, but I was just thinking, man, the B-52, they want to keep that thing going till what? I think they said 2050. It's going to be 100 years old when they retire it.
Yeah, they did a midlife upgrade after 50 years in service.
And it's still trucking. I guess ultimately, I saw someone comment about it, and they're like, it's a massive cargo bay with 8 engines. They're like, how much more complex do you need to get? From dumb bombs to it's got rotary launchers with stealth cruise missiles. They're like, you got to load it up. I've used my 30 minutes, and I promised you I would not go a minute over because I know you're a very busy man. Thank you, Michael J. Durant, for doing my podcast. And I have to ask, is there any way I can get you to say fucking Irene?
So I'm pretty sure I said it, first of all. And actually, if you're going to have a line in a movie, that's a pretty darn good one to have.
It's an
right?
awesome line.
Yeah. So, and to me, it really underscores the feeling that you have when you're about to launch, because
Yeah.
that's the code word that we're launching,
Yeah.
right? And it says it all. Fucking
Yeah.
Irene.
Yeah. Yes. You just made my year, man. Michael Durant, thank you so much for doing, dude. You're the coolest guy I've talked to. Thank you so much, man. You just made my year. I'm so excited. I'm about to send this to every friend I have. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your service, and thank you for creating a country as safe as ours that allow men like you serving to allow boys like me to live the carefree life that I do. Thank you, sir. Thank
All
you
right. Have a
very
great
much.
day. Take care.
Too. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.